meeting of the Boothbay Selectmen to order. First up is this, we'll just do pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll open up a public hearing for the annual town meeting warrant, Articles 3 and 4, and 25 through 35. And I believe Jim's going to give a presentation, and if anybody has questions, they can ask afterwards.
So the majority, I know the majority of the people here have already seen this presentation. I'll try to go fast, and then we'll give this presentation. Dan will give a short presentation on the ordinance changes, and then we'll turn it back over to Steve to take questions and comments. So annual town meeting is May 5th. It is a hybrid town meeting, but that's the same as we always do every year. So essentially that means that some questions will be answered at the polls between 8 and 6, and then the rest of the questions will be answered at 7:30 at the Railway Village. We wanted to point out that all of the information that we'll discuss is on our website. So if you go to townofboothbay.org, let's see if I get an internet connection, you'll be able to pull up all of the information that's associated with the articles that are on the town meeting. So this one in particular, Article 3, the TIF boundary map, you can just click on it. And boom, there you go. So, all of that information is on our website, and people can serve themselves a la carte on what they would like to learn about. What we'll focus on in this presentation, and then Dan will do another one, is Articles 3 and 4. Article 3 is the tax increment financing district. Article 4 is the cross river property conveyance to the Boothbay Region Land Trust. Question 3 in summary, it's a large question. It really boils down to, shall the town create a TIF district? Question 2, elaborate. Why do we want to do this? It creates a shelter for the new value. It designates new revenue for public improvements. You can see I've been very cognizant to cross out things that were included in the TIF before, so no longer issues. There is no project associated with it, but TIF revenues can be used for roads, sidewalks, paths, serving the TIF district and economic development within the town. Just to illustrate, the old project is a big red X, and I did make it bigger based on public request. So why are TIFs used if you have no project? It shelters against adverse adjustments to state subsidies and county taxes. How does this work? Essentially, when you have new investment in your town and the real estate value total of your town goes up, there are a few calculations that have a negative effect. State education subsidy goes down. We can't go down any further than we are, but if they were to fund state education to the 55% mandated by law, we would see that effect in that case. Municipal revenue sharing also goes down. That's based on valuation. So because our town is getting more valuable, we get less of that money. Lincoln County taxes go up. That's based on the value of your town, so the more valuable your town is, the more you pay in taxes, similar to any other individual property tax. And the latest one that we've added to is also the Boothbay Region Refuse and Disposal District cost share is based on valuation, so the more valuable Boothbay becomes, the more we pay in that cost share agreement as well. So the TIF shelters that impact. The TIF we've designed is 30 years, and it's almost $900,000 worth of tax protection. How does it work? It's very simple. We draw lines. It's within the boundaries of the town, saying this is the area we'd like to protect. It freezes the value of that area, and there's been some discussion about how does this freeze work. It's only for valuation purposes for those subsidy things that I went over. Essentially, the property owner still pays the same equitable tax that he would have paid even if it wasn't frozen. It's only for the calculations of revenue sharing, education, Lincoln County taxes, and that refuse district. Those 4 areas that I had spoken about before. Yes, sir.
So if the tax rate goes up, let's say the country club paid X amount of dollars last year, the tax rate goes up. this does not freeze their tax bill. Their tax bill would go up also. And the town, instead of sending that money to the state, would recoup that and keep that in the local municipality.
That's correct.
So this isn't a tax freeze for any properties. It's just a way for us to gain the money?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So it only freezes it on those calculations are the only things that are frozen.
Right, it doesn't freeze it for the taxpayers.
So the taxpayers that are located within the TIF district, and the country club is the easiest one to point a finger at, they have the same reaction to the tax rate as everyone else. If the tax rate,
it's a tax break for the whole town then?
That's correct.
From the state, it's not a tax break for individuals.
Right, it's a tax break for the town, which essentially we feel as taxpayers through the tax rate. So after we create this freezing mechanism, the municipality has to make a development program, and a lot of times in the development program there are more of the intricate details about what you plan on doing with the TIF district. Our TIF district is written in a fashion that is very generic to allow the taxpayer in the future to decide projects that they're going to use the TIF revenues for. This is the approval process. We have accomplished this section. We've created the program and the boundaries and the development program and the financial plan. The next thing will be municipal approval at the May town meeting. If we get approval from town meeting, we'll send our TIF to the state of Maine DECD, and they will approve it. And after that, then it goes into effect. TIFs are not new to Boothbay. Obviously, Hodgson Yachts had a TIF enacted in 2000. It was a 20-year TIF and had a 75% credit enhancement agreement, which means 75% of the captured money went back to the developer. Washburn and Downey had another TIF enacted in 2009. That was also a 20-year TIF and a 75% credit enhancement agreement, so 75% of the captured money went back to the developer. So the one we're proposing, we'd call TIF District 3. It's obviously being proposed this year for a 30-year term with no credit enhancement agreement, so no money is returned to any developers. It stays within the town. This is what the picture of the district looks like. You can see we've captured the golf course, Route 27, and the industrial park. The natural question is to say, what are these selected properties that are not highlighted? Like this particular one's the American Legion, that's the Common, this is the cemetery. They're selected places that there's no tax impact anyway, so why collect them in the TIF district? Some calculations just to show that we've done our diligence with the math. The original assessed value of that large highlighted area, which means what it's valued at as of right now, is $17 million. What will be the increase of value that we expect? $26.3 million. That will create $187,000 worth of new revenue in the future, and if that goes into the TIF fund by the TIF mechanism, that creates $5.6 million of new tax revenue in the TIF fund. The authorized uses of TIF revenues, so what can that TIF fund be used for? Improvements to roads, sidewalks, parking areas in the district, construction of sewer, water lines, and related facilities in the district and serving the district, economic development planning studies, administrative expenses associated with the district. But those are allowable uses. No uses would be approved until it went to a future town meeting. This town meeting will not determine how those funds will be expended. So that will be a future town meeting. So I parcel out the TIF because it is a huge omnibus question. When you go to the polls, you'll see a paragraph, and I'm not exaggerating. It takes up most of the page. And if you prepare for the question, it's an easy one to answer. If you don't, and you have to read it on the spot, it'll take you a little bit longer. So know what it means, and essentially the bottom line is, can the town or shall the town create a TIF district? A yes means yes, a no means no. We're not the state of Maine, we didn't flip-flop it. And if you go to our website and you look at the development program, you're going to see this huge 33-page document. It's very simple when you read it. Pages 2 through 4 are the application to DECD, some demographic data. Pages 5 through 10 essentially says why are we doing this? Why are we putting together this TIF district? And essentially these are the kind of the bullet areas. Pages 10 through 12 are the financial plan. There is no indebtedness in our TIF, but this is where we would put it, although there is a paragraph that says there's no indebtedness. This is a government document. It explains how the mechanism works, and then we put some development restrictions in case a future town meeting puts a credit enhancement agreement in, that the maximum that a credit enhancement ever could be would be 75%, and then over the lifetime of the TIF, 50%. So those are protections for the town in the future. The tax shift, this is what it would look like if the TIF was enacted. Essentially, this is your annual column, this is your 30-year total column. You can see we don't really save any money through education because we don't receive any subsidy from the state. But our county tax is impacted by about $25,000, revenue sharing $1,400, and the Boothbay Region Refuse and Disposal
District
is $2,100. For almost $30,000, you can see how that tax shift works. I'd like to remind everybody that the revenue sharing is based on current day revenue sharing. Obviously, that's not funded 100%. If that were funded 100%, this number would be multiplied probably by about 4 or 5. So the total aggregate over 30 years is the town saves or prevents a tax shift of almost $900,000. I added a new screen because this is kind of the central idea, and I might have to explain this out. The central idea here is the pros and cons. Why are we voting on this? If you vote yes and you create the TIF district, you will not see a decrease in your property value. The new value won't go to the general fund. But you also won't lose any of that new tax revenue to these tax shift items that I just demonstrated. And you'll designate a new fund with that 100% of the new tax revenues. Essentially, those TIF revenues have to be used in designated purposes. Infrastructure, economic development, like I just said. Well, I wanted to show people that we already, 13% of our budget is already used for TIF appropriated expenditures, which is about $251,000. So we're already making expenditures that are in that nature. If you vote no, it is true that you could decrease taxes by 2.3% by adding all of that revenue into the general fund. It's not as large as some people would think. We are definitely a large town when it comes to value. But you lose 16% of the new tax revenue through that tax shift. So I wanted to show what the pros and cons of the two approaches are. More parceling out the TIF, page 12 through 14, is just demonstrates the approval process. And then you get into a series of attachments. Some of the things that I've already shown you, how the tax shift works, what's the map look like, what are the exact parcels. And so there's a whole bunch of attachments that are in there. There's also a model credit enhancement agreement. Although this TIF does not have a credit enhancement agreement by law, you have to provide what one would look like if you were to approve it. Tax shift computations, public hearing notices, all those are the types of attachments in there. So moving on from question 3 to question 4. Question 4 is the Cross River property, and essentially what town meeting is being asked is, do they want to convey the 19.8 acres of property that we have off of Route 27 that we've been calling the Cross River property to the Boothbay Region Land Trust. Essentially, this would be done by a release deed because it wasn't tax-acquired property in 1995, so the law allows us to use this very simple deed approach where most deeds are more complicated. Why do we have to go to town meeting? Essentially, the property was retained by town meeting in 2002, and only town meeting can trump town meeting. So we have to ask town meeting to change its mind if they so choose. There are some elements to this. The deed will retain public easement for passive recreational use on the property. The land trust says that they will build a nature center, and we've written into the deed that if they don't build a minimum of 50, I worded this incorrectly and I haven't really fixed it yet, but it says if they don't build a minimum of 1,500 square foot structure within a 15-year period of time, the town could repurchase it for $1 within 15 years. So there's a buyout clause that says if you don't do what you say you're going to do, the town will take it back over. So obviously the TIF is complicated, and there may be questions about the Cross River property, so I can be available for questions, and then Dan's going to go through much faster than I did on a PowerPoint presentation as well.
Let's see if I can get out of this. We'll move then.
Can you left click on it?
There we go. Okay. All right. So, warrant article 25, essentially what we did here is we packaged some of the low-level items, and here are a couple examples where we're changing shall for may and the 5 for the Roman numeral 5. We packaged those together, essentially just because, again, they're pretty low level. Didn't really feel as though we needed to spend a lot of time on those. Warrant Article 26, this is regarding the Industrial Park District. And essentially you can see here the change is in the C2 district. So because the industrial park is a standalone district, that was the change. Again, fairly low level. 27, again, industrial park. In the previous ordinance revision and subsequent map change, a property was mistakenly left out. The C3 district and the village district both have potential additions, which we can see. And we'll go over briefly, and then I'll show you on the map what it looks like. As the existing district sits along Country Club Road, it abuts general residential. Along that corridor, the general residential sit existing non-conforming uses, including Elbridge Giles gravel pit, the transfer station, and the town public works. Sliding the district across the road to encompass these properties, as well as the country club, would correct any future issues with existing facilities. And essentially, this is what it looks like now. And this is the proposal. You can see this blue area that just kind of slides down just south of Country Club Road. In the Village District, or in the East Boothbay General Residential District, sitting between the Maritime District and the Bigelow Laboratory Contract Zone, the proposal is to take this pocket and extend the Village District, thus creating a more compatible area in regard to use. And again, you can see as it sits here now, you have, this is the Maritime and this is Bigelow, and you just kind of have this pocket sandwiched in between. The proposal is just to kind of fill this out as Village area.
What is it now?
General residential. And so it's just one of those, it was brought up a couple of times, seemed like a pretty smart fix for that area. Might have been just a bit of oversight, but worth looking into. Article 28 regarding definitions, that's pretty straightforward. Obviously here is one of the example structures. This was identified very early in the process as a priority item. Because we currently have driveways and parking areas in our definition of a structure. And I'm not 100%, but I'm 99.9% sure we are probably the only town in the state of Maine who identifies those as structures. The issue is that they have to be held to the same setback standards as any house, shed, etc. Meaning if you're in an area that has a 40-foot setback, your road can't go any closer than 20 or 40 feet to the property line. And some people may get it confused with the DEP has, within the shoreland area, they identify roads and driveways in terms of lot coverage. Because there's calculations that need to be done for permeable versus impermeable. And this really doesn't have anything to do with that. This is just town-wide. Those rules exist and they'll continue to exist. Just to kind of give you an idea of when you have setbacks, exactly what parcels out. This is one of the other important definition changes, commercial fishing activities and maritime activities. And I think this stemmed from what everyone probably remembers is, you know, David Stimson and the issues he had. In order to create metrics to distinguish true manufacturing from artisanal boat building, the proposal is to create the distinction by following home occupation standards that are already incorporated within the ordinance. Things like no more than 3 employees. Yeah, they're a good group of standards and wouldn't allow someone in a special or a general to just expand and become a great big boatyard. Article 29, this is regarding the uses in the C1 district. Again, this is what was brought up as kind of a way to fix a non-conforming area, or not area, but uses within this area. And as you can see here, within the C district, you have E.M. Wood, Knickerbocker, and Guy Peasley. They're all existing non-conforming, and as such are limited by ordinance in regard to their businesses. So we think this is probably one way to look into fixing that situation. Article 30 regarding the height limitations within the C3 district. Essentially, you can see that this would allow maximum structure height can be 44 feet if the structure is more than 250 feet from Route 27 along Country Club Road. So it's a very select area. We already have 2 other places in town that allow 54 feet. So this is nothing new, and it's a little bit smaller. Article 1 regarding use in the industrial park. The proposal is to allow mineral exploration and extraction within the industrial park outside of the watershed overlay. And that's a pretty important designation, as the overlay does kind of extend into the industrial park just around where the American Legion and the storage facilities are at. But no one wants to put that in that watershed overlay area. And again, this is, I think this was brought about because we know a couple of landowners there do deal in that kind of type of business. Article 32 regarding subsurface wastewater in the industrial park. And again, this is the big change. When the current system fails, if public sewer is available, subsurface wastewater disposal should not be permitted for new uses if the property is subject to a sewer ready to serve fee. So essentially, if we get town sewer up there, your system fails, that's the point you would have to tie in. Article 33 regarding signs generally. And you can see here, this kind of touches on, we'll get a little more in depth as we move along, but this kind of touches on, there's a couple of additions, potential additions, illuminated signs and changeable display signs. So again, the key here is where these would be allowed and why they would be allowed. And you'll see essentially what we're looking at, changeable display signs are permitted at businesses providing retail fuel sales to display the price of fuel only. So it's a very specific area and it's a very specific intent. Essentially we're saying you don't have to go out with your sticks and change your fuel prices every morning with the little plastic pieces. You can just do that from the inside the store. Sign illumination. And again, this is one of the keys, is that internally illuminated signs shall only be permitted at businesses providing retail fuel sales along the Route 27 corridor. And I think the metrics of business would suggest that we probably can't fill that Route 27 corridor with many retail fuel businesses. Probably just not going to work. However, we do have 2 existing non-conforming. Article 34 regarding sign placement standards. This was also identified early on. This was probably priority 1 on the agenda for the planning board when they started looking at this ordinance review. And I think you'll understand there are places like Bigelow Labs, the White Anchor Inn, Hall's Funeral Home. Actually, most of the signs in town are affected by this. And essentially what it is it's allowing us to go to this 33-foot center line, which is DOT standard. We have a 50-foot, and that's where a lot of the signs that are existing non-conforming, because we also have a provision that does not allow for them to be fixed, repaired, or moved without moving them back to the greatest extent practical. So this would allow for some of those businesses, and a lot of these businesses do want to improve their signs, or in fact, in The Hall Funeral Home, they would like to change it because there's been a change of ownership, and they're actually going to kind of change the business around a little. But as it exists now, they really couldn't do any of that without, I think in Hall's instance, and also, well, Hall's you wouldn't see it. It would have to go behind the building. And in the white anchors, it would put it smack dab in the middle of their parking lot. So I think everyone could probably see that's not the best use of a sign. Just a couple of examples. Bigelow. As that temporary sign sits right now, it's 32 feet from the center line. The existing setback is 50 feet, and you can imagine where that would put it. So most people, as they're driving by, will probably have to hit the brakes about halfway up the hill, probably turn in at Bradley's and have to come back. The proposed is 33 feet, so essentially you're talking about moving this over 1 foot. I think everybody probably recognizes that's a safer option. White anchor. As it sits now, it's 34 feet from the center line. The existing setback is 50 feet. The proposal would obviously allow it to stay, but I think when we measured it out, this is essentially where the sign would have to go. So not very conducive to running a good business. Any questions? Easy.
So we'll open up to public comment. Does anybody have any questions regarding any of the articles for town meeting? Easy. I guess we'll roll right into our regular meeting. We did advertise it that it was going to be following the public hearing, correct?
We did. The only thing that so on your agenda, we have put some times in the left-hand corner because we had announced some of these public hearings at specific times before we set the agenda. So the only thing I would say is when we get to 7 o'clock, let's have the public hearing for the wards and weird.
Makes sense. Okay. First public comment. None. Wonderful. Scheduled agenda request. So first we have Dawn Gilbert here from the Boothbay Civic Association to talk about our 250th celebration.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't get, has anybody seen today's paper, the register?
I haven't.
Catherine has read something online. We were hoping it would have been out by the time the meeting was on, but it isn't. Well, as you people know, the 250, which is called a Sester Centennial. Did you guys all know that?
I do not.
No. Sester.
S-E-S-T-E-R, Centennial. So anyways, we are moving along with, this is kind of our agenda, and Catherine has been very kind to help us out from Boothbay Regional Chamber of Commerce there. And she's a Boothbay resident. So the war's still on, you know. Friday on August 22nd, we're planning a seafood festival on the common. Friday night with music. And Ralph Smith is helping with that, and we are gonna be also getting a hold of all of the Boothbay restaurants and the little places there, vendors and everything. This is all tentative, you understand. And music. Maybe even some dancing out on the grass, we don't know. Could be. And then Saturday, we're planning on having children's activities on the common. A big parade, which we would like to have, starting up. We're planning on starting up at the fire station, coming down through, on the back side of the common, coming around and finishing up over by the ball field. And then Saturday night, we're gonna have beanhole beans. We're gonna bring our beans back. And hopefully, we're helping the Masons are gonna help us out with that. And we're gonna have a pig roast, plenty of food, and all that. Saturday night, we are going to have fireside stories, and we're hoping to have a reenactment group, but we're definitely gonna, I've already checked with Dickie's property so we could do a fire pit or whatever they do. We're gonna have marshmallows and s'mores, and we're gonna have storytelling, historical storytelling, which ought to be fun, and some of the old stories from way back, and I'm sure there's some good ones. And I think that was it for Saturday night, right? And then on Sunday, we're hoping to have the reenactment. I'm hoping to have a Civil War reenactment. And working on that. And then Sunday night, we want to have fireworks down to East Boothbay. So this is kind of the plan a little bit. We need some volunteers, and we need lots of volunteers, and we need lots of money. Fireworks are going to be expensive. So I'm hoping that you guys will be able to help us out. We're going to need money, we're going to need help. That's when I come back to ask you people, and I'll keep you updated as we go along. And I commend Jim's on our committee. He seems to be able to attend our meetings pretty good, don't you, Jim?
And I've stated that informally we'll give them all the assistance that we can, but we've never formally talked about what assistance the selectmen want to provide. So it'd be, I mean, obviously the 250th, we want to be supportive, but I guess if this would be the time to say what level of support we give.
I'd say, what level of support are you looking for?
We haven't got a figure yet what it's gonna, it's all gonna cost us. I know, I guess, do we have to have a formal thing for signs from the selectmen?
So a lot of these discussions we've had have been really informal. One of the discussions was about placing some 250th anniversary signs that I guess Mr. Marsh is going to do for us.
Yes, he's going to do two, and we wanted to have one out, welcome to Boothbay, and another one over here on the common. And we definitely need to have that up for summertime to let everybody know that we are 250 years old.
You don't look a day over 60.
Oh, thanks,
So placement of signs like that, we would look just to the selectmen for their authority to put, something new on the common. Because there's no policy or law that states that I have any authority, so we would just defer to you guys.
How do we handle signs now on the common? Because there's been times when the sign holders had a sign in it and a second sign has come up and it's never come before us. I'd assumed that you always took care of that. So I would say just take care of it.
Yeah, we essentially have times where people are trying to double use the sign that's over here, and we just stretch the policy and say, well, it's not hurting anybody to place this one here while that one. So I mean, this would be more of almost a semi-permanent.
Yeah.
Just through the summer.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not like it's just a day or two or a week. We're talking about something a little more permanent, and so we'd look for your guys.
But we're not looking for we don't need a motion, you just need a consensus from us.
Consensus is fine. I just,
I say Jim, take care of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Well, the only thing we need help, we need money, so. I haven't, when you have another meeting and I get together a little bit more of how much everything's gonna cost us, then I'll come back and ask you for some money. How will that be?
I've promised, any traffic support that we can use with the fire department. I assume that was safe to state. We've been allowing the committee, the BCA, to use our offices like we always do.
Right.
So I've essentially said if we have it and we don't have to appropriate more money, they can have it. And if there's any objection to that, we'd want to know now. And if there's any additional money that you want to make available, we would want to know that as well.
I think you kind of, once we find out, because you guys are advertising too for donations, correct?
Yeah, we are.
So, once you find out a little bit more of what you got versus what you need.
Yeah.
I think something that we should look at too is Now, we've used our contingency fund a number of times this year, so the balance for this fiscal year is getting low.
Yeah.
But we've got the new one that would come up July 1st, as long as everything passes at town meeting. And I would think that this would be an occasion that we would
Exactly.
dip into that fund.
I don't know what a fireworks celebration costs. I don't reckon.
Well, I do know that one. I do know that one. Don't be careful.
What does it cost?
It's gonna cost somewhere between 10 and 12,000 to do a fire.
If you do
fireworks.
windjammers and what, 4th of July, it's 10,000 each time.
Wow.
So,
So if you wanted to, that's about a half an hour of
Yeah.
fireworks. So,
yeah.
you know, if you don't blow up as much as you have to blow up.
Yeah. So we're working on, trying to get some heavy hitters and
Now, where would the display be in East
we
Boothbay?
wanna go down to East Boothbay.
Where, Ocean
Yeah.
Point or Murray Hill?
No,
or-
no, down, right, when I say East Boothbay, I mean around.
The boatyard?
off-
The marina.
Off the shipyards,
Okay.
The cove.
right in through there, and
Right in the cove.
Jim said that we got the shipbuilders plan. It's also been talk about doing it out on a barge, and we gotta go down and kind of look and see what that is. Tom Nickerson's he's actually going to work doing, I'm kind of saying, he's the fireworks man, because he's gonna go and check out what it's gonna cost. And
Have you given it any thought about busing for the
yeah, we're gonna have
fireworks?
to bus people in.
Is it
Yeah,
parking?
we know that. And we're also probably gonna have to bus people in for some of the events too. And we may have to go down to the school and bus people up, so, yeah,
You get the school, you get the fire station.
and we got the fire station. The day of the parade though, we won't be able to do that
No.
too much from there, so.
Sounds very
But-
exciting though.
So
Sounds
if we
like
can
you've got
get
a lot
everything
planned.
all pulled off, it's gonna be,
We talked
Yeah.
conceptually about it because renting a barge to do fireworks over the water sometimes get a little expensive. We talked conceptually about if we did them from the shipbuilders pier area, that we could shoot them over the water and that may be safe. I mean, obviously somebody with more logistical experience will have to decide whether that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that would be a change in use of a town-owned property that you guys would have to decide whether it's appropriate or not.
Just curious, where does the harbor get the barge for windjammers and?
and when you get your barge.
One of Winslow's, isn't it?
It's Winslow or Head Marine, they're gonna do that
Yeah.
this year. But because it's done over the harbor, it can get up to $3,500 just to rent the barge. So we've worked out various deals here and there. But in the past, it used to be donated. A bit more recently, it's cost money. So if you could do it on a park that's on land already, that would.
Well,
you would have to do it.
The shipbuilders park is kind of that's a kind of a small area. I would think over at the launching ramp at the Ocean Point Marina would be a better.
But we've talked to Ocean Point Marina about having the
Yeah,
park,
we can get-
a viewing there.
We can get more people, we think, down there.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying where they actually physically shoot the fireworks off is best to get it away from where people are watching them. That's why I was thinking of the marina might be a better place to fire them off, but the person that's going to do it.
Yeah, well,
Right.
I'm kind of leaving that, we're leaving a lot of that stuff up to Tom too,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we're gonna check out all the possibilities. Nothing's cast in stone, this is what we're working on.
I would guess we'd say to you then, once you get more hardcore numbers of what you need and what you need from us, come back. I mean,
Right.
we'll do anything, we'll do anything that we can. I mean, we can't give the world, obviously, but, I mean, I think that.
You only celebrate 250 once.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
You'll
that's right.
definitely have the support of the board. It's how much support we can give.
I mean,
Well,
but it don't sound like it's unrealistic to me.
Nope.
By no means.
I think we'll be able to with the BCA, because you don't understand, we're all a bunch of old people, you know. I've heard this from, well, they can't do anything, because they're a bunch of old people. I've been hearing that.
When is this date?
Well-
When is this date?
August 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. So we're doing good. I mean, I think we're doing really good. It's a lot of enthusiasm.
Yep.
And not just even from Boothbay, but also from Boothbay Harbor. Imagine that. So it's not guessing.
Fill up our hotels and
Catherine's
stuff.
done a really good job on
Up
promoting
hotels.
this. She's been really working hard on promoting it.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do a stamp thing. And we gotta figure out what day we wanna do the stamp on. And probably it's gonna have to be that Friday. I got to thinking about it. The 23rd, yeah. I meant to tell you that today. So it's really going good. We hope we're inviting, of course, the governor, the 2 senators, and all the dignitaries, you know.
That'd be nice.
And if they can't, well, anyway, we're gonna ask for a proclamation, right, Chuck?
We also have, Maine Magazine will cover it for us. We'll have a full-page ad in their August issue, and then we'll send their photographers to photograph it.
It's gonna be
The party will be good not just for Boothbay, but for the entire region.
Sure,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's really gonna be good, I think. And as far as this seafood festival, we're hoping it may become an annual event on the common.
That'd be kind of, it'd be nice to
So we're
see.
hoping we want to bring things up to Boothbay, as well as being down in Boothbay Harbor.
Yep.
Everything seems to center down Boothbay Harbor. So we're hoping it's gonna come up from Boothbay and be able to use our common, and yeah, I think it's gonna be really nice.
The Common's a beautiful area.
It is.
Makes sense to use it.
I like the new flags, by the way, that you put around. That's very nice.
Henry?
Yeah.
It's interesting that this is all going to happen in August. Because this August, first time in 683 years, August has 5 Fridays, 5 Saturdays, and 5 Sundays.
Guess we're lucky. So anyways, but I'll come back. Is there any more questions?
I just had a question. Wouldn't it be, I mean, I know Boothbay Harbor seceded from our union in 1880
Oh, yeah, they did.
something, but they were part of Boothbay 250 years ago too, weren't they? So I mean, aren't they, I mean, wouldn't they be 250 years too?
Yes,
Well, they are. But you gotta understand, the war, like I said, the war's not over yet.
Well,
we
I
are.
have to tell you, there are some old people here that don't believe it.
Well, actually, technically, when did they succeed?
1880 something?
1889.
They are,
Well, I know they're newer, I mean, they're newer, but.
we're
I'm
part,
just-
I'm
Well,
part
Southport
of
used
this,
to be part of Boothbay too.
Right.
I'm part
That's
of the branding project that we're working on for the peninsula, for the way down. My feeling is it would be good to tie this in with the 250th, because everybody was all together back in those
Right.
times. And so on that branding piece, we're gonna have to be able to put 250th on it. We're hoping it would launch or come out either by windjammers or in time for this, so that it can be one big piece, and then anybody can use that through the region for the 250th for that time, to promote it.
So let me tell you, we're working on it.
We're also having-
Believe me, we've been working on it for a long time.
We're also having the Boothbay Information Center, three board members from that, and the Boothbay Harbor Chamber, 3 members for that, meeting together to talk about ways that we can work together, and we'll put forward to see if they could help with the 250th as well, so that it is more of a celebration of the whole region.
Whole community.
And we should have one chamber, and I'm sure that most of us all agree to that. And maybe that's a start, you know, but a lot of new people that have moved here don't know all the history of back, and it's pretty amusing sometimes, I gotta tell you, to say the least.
We should move on from it.
We need to move on from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, and I'll be back in touch with you.
Absolutely.
We look forward to it.
All right.
So we'll skip the woodchucks because
Unless Henry's prepared to speak for them, I don't know.
They was coming in next meeting, I think.
Barclay Shepard and Bill Smith had put on the agenda. I don't think you're prepared to speak to their topic, are you?
I didn't even know the meeting was going to be.
okay. So why don't we wait
Come
and
back.
see? I mean, because officially, they probably expect it after 7, so.
Yep.
So next on the agenda is Charles Gilbert
Yes,
about the Shellfish Committee.
yes, I just have a few questions about the committee. Are you guys aware that the committee has grandfathered some out-of-town licenses this year? Where we have an open license ordinance?
No.
No. Do they have the power? Does the Shellfish Committee have the power to grandfather licenses?
Fair question.
Not according to ordinance.
And that's, I obviously met with Mr. Gilbert a while ago. We gave him a copy of the ordinance, we talked about this, and it was my interpretation. I mean, it doesn't say anywhere in here the town manager enforces or anything, so it was my interpretation that the licenses go by this ordinance, which gives the clerk the permission to do, I don't see anywhere where it says that, but then I said, you should speak to the selectmen.
So who actually enforces the ordinance?
The shellfish warden enforces portions of the ordinance, and then the committee enforces the rest.
And who's our committee representatives?
Did I write it down? Obviously Russell Pinkham.
Russell Pinkham's the head. Grant Perkins is somewhere on there. Mike Wood is somewhere on there. Douglas Perkins. I'm not sure who the rest of the members are. I've never actually seen them all there once in a meeting.
Are you asking about the shellfish warden?
No, the
No,
committee.
the committee.
I want to tell you, tell you guys, the shellfish warden is very good.
But I think in a couple of months, he's going to be a stand-up warden for us, and we needed one guy.
But essentially, we communicate with Russell anytime we have any town communication with the Shellfish Committee. He coordinates with us when he has meetings. They have the meetings here.
Have you brought this topic to him?
I did let him know that you were on the agenda tonight, so that it wouldn't.
What was his response?
He asked if he should be at the meeting, and I said honestly, I don't know. I said I would just wait until the selectmen want to have a conversation with him, because I didn't want to state that there was any topic he should be prepared to talk about tonight, because.
Well, my biggest concern is with these grandfathering the licenses, I don't see any good for the ordinance by doing this, except for benefiting Russell's pocket, where he is a clam buyer. The guys that he's grandfathering dig 365 days a year. They're the top diggers in our ordinance. They sell all their clams to him. And a few years ago, there was no mention of this. All of a sudden, these guys are here and they want, that seems like that's what the intent is.
So, just because I'm completely unclear, what is the grandfathering doing? They're not having
Okay, what it is they're grandfathering these licenses for out-of-towners that, where it should be a lottery. We don't have a cap on our licenses. We have you can go buy one, anybody in town. If you live in Boothbay, Edgecombe, Southport,
Right.
Boothbay Harbor, you can go buy one.
Right.
The more licenses that are sold, the more out-of-town licenses can be sold.
Okay.
For every 10 licenses, resident licenses,
Are
one
sold.
non-resident can be sold.
Okay.
And my biggest concern was, how does this correlate with the town clerks? Are they still going to be able to take applications in for a lottery, even though there's 4 guys that are grandfathered in on these licenses that don't have to worry about going to the lottery?
Right.
Just go buy their license. I don't understand where the thought process is behind the committee. They wouldn't give me any answers at the committee meeting at the last meeting. Just wonder if you guys could clarify.
So you did take it to them?
I did. And they told me it was worded in the ordinance that they can do that. They can grandfather licenses. And Jim was good enough to go over with me. We couldn't find anything. Chuck went over it. He couldn't.
So I guess the appropriate question would be, we should ask them to come to us and explain to us where it is in the ordinance.
Right.
But it states in ordinance, and I'm looking on page 8 of 11, D, all non-resident licenses will be issued by lottery. All.
And honestly, how would the clerk know that there was any deviation?
Right.
Well, that's the other concern.
What's going through my mind?
Well, I know.
Who's grandfather who can come in and buy a license and who can't?
Right.
It doesn't seem fair to me. It seems like it should just stay like it always has, be a lottery and not benefit anybody.
So who does the clam warden actually, I mean, he's got to be responsible to someone. Is it us or the town of Boothbay Harbor?
It's all to the ordinance in general, Southport, Boothbay Harbor.
We appoint Boothbay's clam shell
Okay.
warden.
So he basically goes to them.
And usually
for
all
direction.
4 towns appoint the same person.
Okay.
In the past, it had been Grant
Right,
Carter,
right.
and now it's Nicka.
Okay.
That's
Is
the
there
thing.
lots of revenue here?
I actually don't.
No.
Lots of revenue?
Applications go every year.
I don't see a loss of
I think you get more for a non-resident license, correct? So technically no, but it's loss of work for local
No,
folks.
I've got friends that live in
Essentially.
town that don't get.
So I guess in a sense, you could say it's a loss of revenue because if the local folk don't get as many clams because the non-local folks are getting them, then yes, there is a loss.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's not staying in town for sure.
One of the things that I noticed in the ordinance when I read it after Jim had sent it to me is the boards are supposed to get regular reports from the Shellfish Committee.
Yeah, we never do.
And it's not uncommon for an ordinance or a policy to get stale. You know, that happens all the time. How many times do we look at the admin code and like, oh, it said that?
Yeah.
And when you don't have a dedicated person that enforces the ordinance or all aspects of the ordinance, then it gets stale quicker. You know, the Shellfish Committee, they're laymen like every other board. It's tough to keep up with the ordinance. I'd be surprised if all of them had a copy of it. They probably just do what they have always done.
Could we ask them to come to our next meeting?
I can. I figured that would be the most appropriate next step. If you guys, I'm not saying there is no validity to the argument, but if you guys think there's validity to the argument, we bring in the Shellfish Committee or
I mean, it's
representative.
pretty clear. It says all. So how many licensed?
There's 4 out-of-town licenses right now.
How many?
4 bail.
It goes,
Yes.
Right.
oh, there's 4 available.
Well, there's 4 out right now. There's
But how many technically could there be?
It's endless.
It's
If we
based
had-
on
if
how
we
many
had-
residents.
Every
Right,
town,
but what I'm getting at is how many residents are licensed right now? Do you have any idea?
I think it's in the 40s.
40s.
It's gotta be the 40s. We have 4 licenses.
it has to be in the
one for every
40s,
10.
yeah.
1 non-resident for every 10 resident.
But if it's a lottery, there should be a record of that lottery every year, and that's why I just asked him
Right.
if there was a number of applicants. You know, I mean, how many people applied for those non-resident licenses last year? There should be some kind of record.
Well, I can answer that. I mean, I don't have the specific numbers, but the clerk does enact a lottery according to the ordinance. That specific section that she's responsible for, I've witnessed it a few times. So she does keep track of all the numbers and does the lottery as the ordinance states. So, I mean, we're doing our portion, the town office portion.
So
But the same
Really, then,
people
you
get
could-
it every year?
you could almost have, if she's doing that lottery, if she did a lottery and get awarded 4, and the Shellfish are grandfathering 4, you could potentially have 8 out-of-town licenses then.
Yeah, and we would know it. I mean,
That's therein lies the problem
Right.
that I can see.
Actually, if the clerk is the one issuing the licenses, you wouldn't have 8. You'd have 4 people digging legally and 4 people digging illegally.
Yeah.
Because there's 4 licenses that have never been issued.
But they could go to could you go to Boothbay Harbor and get a license, or Southport and get a license?
Yes, that's the thing.
So-
Each lottery is in each town. Southport has a lottery, Boothbay has a lottery, Etcham has a lottery, Boothbay Harbor has a lottery.
But still, the 4 grandfathered ones that the committee is grandfathering still has to have a license in the town of Boothbay in order to dig in Boothbay.
No,
No.
the license that you get covers the 4 towns.
The ordinance covers 4 towns.
Well, this is a complicated mess now, isn't it?
The ordinance is covered by 4 towns.
I got you.
And the other question I have is, it also states in here that the municipal officers of each town shall appoint 2 of its Shellfish Committee members and at least 1 licensed commercial digger to be a member of the committee. I know Southport doesn't have any commercial representation, and Edgecombe doesn't have any commercial representation on the committee as well. I don't know if that's something you guys handle, or if that's something the committee takes care of, or...
That'd be something that would have to be taken up with those towns.
Okay,
They just
okay,
don't have anybody there.
right. Well, Southport has a couple of diggers, so they could have commercial representation. Edgecombe has 4 or 5.
Only if they want to be.
That would be, you'd have to go to their town, each town, and
Right, okay, okay.
because we can't tell each town what to
Right,
do, unfortunately.
right.
But I would love to have them, if they could come to our next meeting. I don't, who was, besides Russell, who was the other one?
I think we looked, didn't we look it
Grant
up?
Perkins is on the committee,
There we
Mike Wood.
Grant must be the other Boothbay one,
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
I don't know. He jumps around so much. I don't know where he's living now. He's in the harbor, he's on South Florida, he's in Alden.
Our two representatives we ought to ask here.
I'll make sure that they're invited to the next meeting. I know Russell had thought about coming to this one, but, so.
Well, we would invite you to our next one if you'd like to come.
No, I will
We're
be
gonna ask
here.
them to come here, so.
I will be here.
We'll find out. Very interesting questions that we don't know the answer to. Hopefully we'll find out.
Excellent, I appreciate it.
No problem.
Next, we'll approve, a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting of 4/9/2014.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Douglas abstained because he wasn't here.
Douglas was
He
here,
was here that last one.
so he's delayed voting because he's a little older?
Yeah, right.
7 o'clock public hearing? Right.
Yep. So we'll have a public hearing now for, where are we? Right in front of me.
Michael Layton. Actually, no.
I don't have the right agenda, sorry.
It's not on the one that's on our
Right,
packets, it's on the new one that Jim gave us before the meeting.
We'll have a public hearing for the Wharves and Weirs for Michael Layton, map R1, lot 74-06, located at West Side Road Extension, Boothbay, Maine, to construct a pier system with a 40-foot by 48-foot pile-supported platform with a 12-foot by 20-foot rope house to provide working waterfront located on the Sheepscot River.
So in your, did I give you a copy of the letter from the harbor master? Because we added this on late. Oh, that's right. So I have a letter and I'll pass it around. You might not have it because the public hearing, the on-site public hearing, and then essentially the planning board is already met on this. So it kind of went a little bit out of order than they have been going. But there was an on-site public hearing on Monday, April 14th. Steve Ham was there, Dan Breyer, Mike Tomaselli from the planning board. One of the abutters was also present, and a letter from Pete Ripley. Essentially, he says that the project was explained in great detail. There does not seem to be any effect of diminished or restricted ingress or egress by riparian owners. There is no evidence that the project will cause injury to others that use the Sheepscot River. He says he's received no objections, oral or written, to this project. The project will not interfere with navigation in the Sheepscot River, and he sees no problems with the proposed pier project as submitted by Leighton Castonguay. I'll pass that around for you guys to take a look at. The planning board has already acted on this because it kind of just fell out of order. So the planning board has already approved their portion, and now it's for the selectmen.
If there's no issues, I make a motion to approve.
There were no abutters' rights, no navigational issues.
Chuck made the motion and Dale seconds. Any discussion? Public comment?
Originally, there wasn't a butter that was concerned. He showed up, they explained it, and that abutter has since made it very clear that he's no longer concerned.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Passes.
Sit up there.
Jim, you want to do the document quote so we don't have to sit here the whole time?
Yeah, that would be great.
We're going to go out of order a little bit. We'll go to old business to do the document scanning quote from the last meeting.
Yep. So we have Scott Richards from Records Management here tonight. I expressed to the chairman our original discussion about records management. Scott was sick, so we had to do a little bit of ad-libbing on putting together the quote for the on-site scanning of documents. And one of the pieces of information we had was incorrect. We had quoted $250 a day for 10 days. After we started getting ready to logistics and putting this together, Scott told me that it's more like 20 days. So now we're, instead of a $2,500 addition to our previous quote, we're talking about a $5,000 addition to our previous quote. I thought that triggered more discussion. I asked Scott to come in here, speak to the board about those circumstances and then their experience on records movements, because I know we talked about that a little bit, and Scott can answer questions much better than I can on that subject.
So, just just to be correct, so to come here, it would take 20 days at $250 a day?
Correct. Reason being is you've got the logistics of if we do it in-house, we've got several scanners, everything's set up, the documents come to us, it's kind of what we do day in, day out. Coming on site, we have to bring the equipment down, we have to have it set up here, so there's just, logistically, it takes longer for that person to get everything set up and do things.
So, am I missing something here? It's $5,000 to do that, to come here and do it.
Correct.
And $6,900 for you to do it at your place.
No, 5,000 beyond the 6,900.
Correct, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You did miss something.
Yes, I did miss something.
Let's sign that contract right now.
Right, I'm thinking
In
that.
addition to,
Sorry.
I thought I was missing something.
But I think that the discussion was, what is the town's liability on these documents while they're in transition? And I think Scott can answer those questions a lot better, because they're obviously a professional records management company, so he can explain their procedures and to make sure that they retain our documents in a safe fashion, and you can determine whether that's exposes the town or not on this issue.
what kind of methods you have to transport the documents and what insurance for them or protective measures, I guess is what we need to know.
I brought a couple copies. I did bring, these are excerpts from our standard operating procedures that talks about our delivery methods, pickup methods. Everything is done with locked trucks. All the trucks are GPS tracked. We also have notifications on all the trucks that if they're off routes, if they hard brake, if they're stopped for too long, it actually triggers sensors back sends emails back to the office to let them know. We do a lot for the healthcare industry. We do a lot with hospitals, law firms, and also financial institutions. So we, on average, we don't just do scanning, we do storage of hard copy records. We also do the destruction of hard copy records. So there's a lot of security, confidential things that go into that. Once the documents are at our facility, everything is barcoded, so we know exactly where all the documents are at all times.
Have you done other towns?
Yes. I'm not to...
No, but on site or at your facility?
At our facility.
Have you ever gone to a town and done it on site?
Have not.
Was you gonna say you're not at liberty to tell us what towns you've done the work for?
No, just because of legality, I cannot talk about existing customers without their permission. Just like if we did something for you, I wouldn't be able to talk about it. And
Can you tell us how many?
I don't know the answer to that right off the top of my head.
Have you ever had an instance where in the transport or handling of documents, things have been lost? How long have you been in business?
Since 1995.
18 years? 19 years.
19 years.
And we have not lost documents, we haven't had any damage to documents, so, and we are fully insured. I think somebody had asked that. We've got $2 million coverage, liability coverage.
Well, the heck of it is, you can't put a price tag on documents. So insurance, I mean, it sounds great, but...
No, I believe take you $2 million, but it still doesn't get the documents back, so it really doesn't.
I'd make that trade in a heartbeat.
I mean, our biggest concern, I mean, when we discussed this before and why we wanted to do it here, was because of, I mean, between here and Bangor, you could get, who knows, you know, you could get in an accident, heaven forbid, but, and then what happens to our documents? That was our concern. That's
the driver is not allowed to leave the disabled vehicle.
Like I said, in 20 years, we have not had any instances. I can't tell you that my drivers haven't been in accidents. I can't, you know.
Right.
But we haven't had any loss of documentation, no files lost. I know HIPAA regulations, high tech, which is from the healthcare industry, are very strict and stringent, and we follow all guidelines when it comes to
How
that.
long would you need them? If you took them to your facility, how long would you have them?
That would be the 10-day period. When we were talking before, we would actually have them for 10 days.
And it would be 20 here.
Yes.
What documents are we talking about?
Planning code, zoning files, that wall that's within, in the other room.
1800, 1900? Are you going back?
Oh, you're talking about vital statistics, and we're not talking about copying those at this time. Those are delicate records that we're not ready to preserve digitally. So
They're getting older.
yeah, they are. I mean, they're also taken care of very well in their original form. You know, someday we need to address it, but right now we're talking about more of a logistical problem of how do you deal with all these code zoning documents. How is that wall useful to us when we're researching a property? Because it's a lot of paper, it's hard to search. The product that records management has creates PDFs that are word searchable. So if we want to know every instance of Henry Row, we look up every instance of Henry Row.
But what's more important, I think, we are one sprinkler system malfunction or a fire or something away from losing them records, where if it's digitally stored, it's in the cloud, so to speak, you know, that you'll always have access to that.
Do you maintain a hard copy of these?
We do, and it's not in the cloud. It's actually on
It's
a
an
server
actual hard
that's based,
copy.
yeah, we've actually got 2 servers that are redundant at 2 different locations. So anything we scan, as long as the customer wants us to, we keep a record of that indefinitely.
So if they want to access something, do they access it on your server, or is it all loaded onto ours and they just access it from there?
It would be actually loaded on your server here, and then
They would just have a hard copy elsewhere offsite.
electronic copy.
So you're gonna digitize and destroy, right?
No.
You're gonna digitize all these files, you're gonna keep both?
We're going to keep both. We anticipate digitizing all of these and then storing them upstairs.
And then as you get new ones, are you gonna digitize on site?
The plan is to, we want to see first of all, how the transition goes, but essentially at some interval, whether that's a year or quarterly or 2 years, we'll collect the hard data, we'll submit it to records management, they'll scan it and put it into our library. So we'd like to keep the library digital, but we're also not predicting the future yet.
So once you get everything done, going forward digitizing, you're still gonna sublet that out and do it?
Yeah.
You're not gonna do it internally?
No, because then you would have a PDF that's not searchable in a library of searchable PDFs.
Right, if they do it for us, you can still search all that information in their format and it would still find all that information. If we digitalize it, okay, we have a nice PDF, but it's not gonna be in their format where they can search and find.
And once it's done, it's $360 a year. It's cheap money for them to.
Right, we OCR, we've got a software package that OCRs the actual document to make it so it's a...
And OCR means?
I mean, I think,
Fancy acronym.
You'd almost be paying double to have them come here. I think it makes sense to go there.
And,
And that was my biggest reason for coming, is knowing the cost difference, I'd love to take the extra money for the company.
Well, in all fairness, and this is not pointing any fingers or anything else, there's a couple of us here that are a little bit more, I guess you could say, loose or more comfortable in the fact that they're getting transported, and there's a couple here that are a little bit more, reserved about setting them off site. And I respect both, to be perfectly honest with you. But I can tell you one thing, for 10 days of having them missing to save $5 grand, me personally, the math is pretty easy.
I was on board with having them do it here.
For 2,500, you kind of give one away, but for $5 grand,
you're doubling the cost at that point. So.
You spend that money on fireworks.
Right.
Ooh.
And if you don't support the 250th?
I have no opinion either way.
So.
When you get your heck.
My recommendation's the same. I mean, I respect the opinion of the board last time, but I think this is an acceptable risk to take. Yeah, all documents are important, but these documents are more important to us if we can use them if we can take this acceptable risk and get them in a format that we can use them more efficiently.
And it's not like the wall goes away, the wall just goes upstairs.
Yeah, it gives us more room down here. We've already talked about how we might make an interface for customers that come in that can then use this library. You know, obviously we would kind of make a structure so that they can't just they can't get into our network and alter, but they'd have the ability to go in under monitor and look for files.
They could do
Well, if they're just readable PDFs, they can't change that anyway.
No, but I'm saying if you put a computer on the network, we don't want full network access. We want them to be able to get to the files that we think that they want to search, and then they don't need to be babysat by a code officer, and then that frees up a code officer.
Makes sense. So what's your pleasure?
I know what my pleasure is.
Need it actually as a motion, or?
How did we do it last time? The minutes are...
I think we put it to a motion. But I got to admit, I still can't wrap my head around the fact that you can't tell me another municipality that you've worked for.
I can, but it's just...
They can tell you. We could tell somebody else, but he can't. I understand that.
It's just it has to do with confidentiality.
The HIPAA laws.
I'm not asking for documents, I was asking for municipalities.
References.
Yeah.
I mean, I can give you references, I just can't, I have to communicate with them first to make sure it's fine with them before I relinquish the information. And that goes with anybody, I mean.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I understand that.
I get it.
Yeah.
Does someone want to make a motion?
Yeah, I will. It's document management, is it?
Records management.
Records management. I'll make a motion that we, I guess, enter into an agreement with record management to send our documents to Bangor and have them copied at a cost of 60, what was it, 6,400?
6,900.
6,900. So, I mean, I don't know what else.
I'll
Second that.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made, second. Any more discussion?
Just clarifying where you're authorizing the
Offset.
proposal that we have here.
Yes.
Right.
For you to execute?
No more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
I respect it, Chuck, I really do.
I know.
Thank you, Scott, for coming down. We appreciate it, and I'll contact you and we'll
I
set
just
up
can't
a
give it out 500, I mean, $5,000.
Oh, no, I totally understand that.
But I totally, thank you. No, we really appreciate you coming down.
Next up, Jim's reports. That would be...
Okay. Please be patient with me, I'm going a little bit out of order. So the first thing under reports is, in your packets are the appointments that you will review for June. I usually start feeding this to you so you can start thinking about it in advance before we get to that point. I'm not asking for any action at this time. I did make a correction that we went back and looked at David Steinmetz's appointment record, and he's not up this year. That was a typo in the last one. So only one Board of Appeals member is up this year.
Actually, according to the annual report, and I just took a peek at it, there's two. The chairman is up as well.
On the Board of Appeals?
Yeah. Yeah, when I was going through my report at home, I thought I'd seen two, so I took a peek.
Yep.
Yeah, Richard W. Perkins, Chair, 2014.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look because Bonnie and I, before I gave you your packets, went back and looked at all the appointments. So I'm I'm going to say that I don't think that the report is accurate. I think that this listing is accurate, but we'll make sure that we fix it before. But when people come off of boards, that's what really kind of confuses the clerk sometimes. Like, how long was that term when they were appointed?
Because on the planning board as well, Mike Tomaselli says 2014, and there's only 2 planning board members listed.
All right, we'll go back and take a look and see.
Yeah, I do remember, I believe we put Fran and Mike on at the same time.
Yeah, but sometimes people are filling out partial terms.
Yeah,
Okay.
they fill out-
And that's the complicated part for the clerk sometimes. Sometimes she'll write down somebody and infer that they're on a 3-year term, but they're picking up half of a 3-year term and so. Continuing through reports, in your packet is the bid that the bid information for the GMC 5500 that we put out on. We put an ad in the Boothbay Register. We put it on Maine Municipal, and we're also targeting people that are interested and sending this to the people that may potentially bid. We've had lots of interest on it, and we set the minimum bid, in my opinion, really low to allow for competition.
I thought that was really high.
Oh, really? Well, we'll think it'll fetch a much higher.
No, I hope you're right.
I think the equipment on it alone is worth $25,000.
You can go to buy one.
We are asking that bidders put in on the bid sheet, and you can see the bid sheet's really similar to the tax sale bid sheet. It's just essentially, a lot of people will put in a bid and they'll put like a check in their name, and you're like, how do I get a hold of you? You know, so that's why we put that together. So we gave this to you in a digital fashion so that if Chuck or Steve or anybody knows somebody that's interested, just forward it to them. You know, anybody can bid on it. Also, I think I put some pictures in there. We're making those available to anybody that inquires about them. Personnel policy, we've notified staff that there is a potential change to the personnel policy expected for May 14th. So that's the notification process. So now the selectmen will have the ability to change the personnel policy based on the changes that we looked at before, no earlier than the 14th. Put that email in your package. Tax sale bid process, I put this on the agenda hoping that I would have more information to give you by this time, but essentially it remains unchanged. We have 3 properties that we expect to go to tax sale. 2 of those may be solved by the 9th, but we're expecting the worst, and the worst would be that we would have 3 properties for sale at our next meeting. So this will be the last time that we talk about the process. The next time we talk about this, you'll probably have bids in your hand ready to open and act on.
Where are we with the one that corresponded with the board?
Our troubled property?
Yes.
We've received a partial payment, about $1,000. So there's still about $1,200 left on the account before it's caught up. So they're making an attempt. But we've made it very clear that the chairman's letter stating that you have to pay all taxes needs to be done. He has stated that that will probably happen by the end of the month.
One thing before our next meeting would, if they do pay it in full, a visit from either you, Dan, or both of you to make sure, because I mean, remember a year ago, he was pretty adamant about wanting the property cleaned up. I mean, I think that should still be a condition to make sure it's fairly presentable.
Yeah.
I mean, am I wrong in that?
I would agree.
Right.
I mean, I'm just thinking of the neighbors more than anything. So, I mean, and I've been told that it's been cleaned up, so maybe it's suitable, I don't know.
Partially.
Yeah, you go by it every day. So.
Yeah, they're making an attempt.
If we receive full payment before the next meeting, I don't anticipate bringing a release deed at that meeting. It'll essentially be notifying you that, hey, you have the possibility to take that off the tax sale list if you so choose. So I won't have a release deed ready, but we will still visit the property and make sure we have a recommendation. Any more questions on the tax sale bid? Nope. The road improvement workshop, we talked at the last meeting about scheduling a workshop with the foreman, myself, and the board to talk about how we prioritize roads. I'd like to schedule that, and essentially I'm looking at May 14th, our next meeting, if we can meet a little bit in advance of the meeting to talk about how we prioritize roads.
6 o'clock? Is an hour too much?
I think it's more than enough, but I mean, it's...
We do the same as we normally do and roll. I mean, the workshop's open to the public, I assume.
Yeah.
So we just roll right into the meeting after that.
So we'll just schedule the meeting at 6 with a workshop starting at 6, the meeting following immediately afterwards. Okay.
If we have any public hearings, probably we ought to do them for 7, just so they don't have to sit in and wait, like we did tonight.
Yep. And we're approaching that time where we start having liquor license renewals, innkeepers, so that's a possibility.
Yep.
Another thing that I'm going to throw into, when we're having that workshop, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I have your attention on roads, and I'm also going to give you some information that pertains to road discontinuance. I'd like to have that conversation, but not ready for it right now. In your packet, there's a letter in regards to the new flood risk tools that we received. Essentially, the chairman received a CD with a ton of information. We're talking about digital flood maps and flood areas. We've uploaded that to our server, and essentially if people want to see that information, they just come see the code enforcement officer and we'll make it available for them.
I studied them first.
Yeah, he did study for a long time. So eventually in the future, we're going to make sure that that information is on our website, but at this time we're in that website limbo. We're not going to do that. So if people are interested in the floodplain maps, please see the CEO and they can show you what we have for data. I also want to take note about how many people they notify when that CD comes in. Continuing on, the town report obviously was in your mailboxes. I personally think the town report came out really great, and I wanted to give recognition to Heidi Fuller, who put it together. There's a lot of intricacies in putting together some of this. I mean, some of it comes together rather naturally. Some of it, like in our higher level elected officials to give us their correspondence, is sometimes tedious, but it came out really good. And everybody should have a copy. They're available at the town office. Also something we'll put on the website as soon as we get through this limbo transition period.
Has it been proofread?
Not by you, no. So I'm sure we'll find errors in the future. We wanted to point out for when we get to town meeting that we've, in the back is the town warrant and the budget, the budget breakdown in yellow, just so that when we're in town meeting, voters can easily turn to that section and reference it. Annual town meeting, essentially we're putting together the final bits and pieces to town meeting. The moderator, we did contact Al Roberts, and Al is willing to do it this year, so that's great. We'll have him back for this year. The Public Works is actually doing a couple of projects over there. I don't know if you remember, but the outdoor steps are kind of slanted and awkward, and our loss control consultant said that we should fix those. We'll probably have that fixed by town meeting. But nuances like that, setting up chairs, all those things is what we'll be doing over the next couple of weeks. Continuing on, Comprehensive Planning Committee, I put some more information in your packets. Essentially, this is the last meeting that the Comprehensive Planning Committee did, where they're talking about residential areas. And the color coded map that's in your packet was a concept plan that Mark Eierman, our consultant, brought up. Essentially saying, what if we just, instead of treating residential as one area, we treat it as 3 different areas. So on your map, the blue area would be coastal residential. The yellow area, and I want to use his terminology, was just residential. And then the pink area is called rural entrepreneurial, which these are just concept ideas, and essentially saying that don't treat them all the same, that not all piece of rural property is the same, and different uses may apply in those different areas. It was a concept that the Comprehensive Planning Committee kind of liked and said, expand on it. And he does this often. He'll float out an idea, say, do you like it? And then we go a little bit further and iron it out. Chuck, you're the chairman of the Comprehensive Planning Committee. Anything to add?
Just that things are moving along well. We'd hoped to have something ready for May. We won't, so we're shooting for November now. The committee's been doing a great job. Mark's been a fantastic asset, and he keeps us moving along. Funnels information through Jim, and the committee is a good, diverse group that should have a very good product for the people to vote on.
Good.
The next meeting would ordinarily fall on May 5th, but that's obviously town meeting. They've rescheduled that meeting for May 7th. So we'll meet here at May 7th, and then we'll be back on track. So the meeting after that would be May 19th at 6 p.m. Department reports. This actually went pretty fast earlier today. You know, Public Works is doing a lot of their spring cleanup stuff. A lot of times that's hard to quantify. It essentially, you know, sweeping picnic tables, floats, all those types of things. Corrosion control on the plows, taking them off. We're obviously working on trying to get some information for the selectmen when we have this road prioritization workshop. And then we talked about triggering the selectmen on road discontinuance, but we'll see how that goes. Code enforcement, essentially they're working a lot with the planning board the last couple of months. They've had tons of applications, 5 last month, 3 already scheduled for this coming month. That's a lot of work for code enforcement sometimes. The Board of Appeals Planning Board training, which I want to encourage the selectmen to attend, is going to be April 29th. I think that's next Tuesday. Yeah, next Tuesday right here at 6 p.m. Sally is going to come on and do some intense training with the Board of Appeals Planning Board. We have lots of new members. We have lots of senior members that can have their memory re-jogged. We put together a list of things that we'd like her to go over, but some of them overlap into the selectmen's responsibilities as well. You know, freedom of access, correspondence, those things. It's always nice when you can get one-on-one time with the attorney and we already know it's paid for. The business office is sending out 30-day notices on taxes. Essentially that adds up to about 240 accounts, which sounds like an ominous number, but it's actually a good number. It's down a sizable amount from last year. I had one more thing, but I got out of order. Yes, I wanted to let the selectmen know, I think I forwarded this email, but essentially the Board of Appeals for the cell tower is scheduled for May 27th at 7 p.m. I'll make sure I remind you guys when that comes up, and obviously it's a hot ticket item. That's all I have.
Old business, we've done document scanning quotes, so we'll go to the Spirit of America nominee.
So we're going to be vague while we discuss this in front of Channel 7, but Ryan has a copy of the information, which has a typo in it. I'll fix it as soon as we're done our discussion, and we'll get signatures. But essentially what I've put in front of the selectmen is a resolution to recognize the Spirit of America Award recipient, which we talked about at the last meeting. If you guys are okay with the language other than the spelling of Dale Lewis's name, then we can move forward with this, get a signature today, put together a little pomp and circumstance to be recognized at another time in the future.
Yep.
So I would be looking for, I would be soliciting a motion to sign the resolution as presented with the recommended changes.
So moved.
Second.
Chuck made the motion. Steve second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Next is the Boston Post cane, not Boston Port.
It's not the Boston Port cane, it is the Boston Post cane. So essentially what I put together is a letter from the selectmen recognizing the Boston Post cane recipient. We'll also be vague on that because what we would like to do is get the selectmen to sign the letter tonight, and I've already talked to the property caregiver for this lady, and we want to coordinate a kind of a little bit of pomp and circumstance, a little bit of recognition, notify some family members, put this together at a later date. So I'd be looking for the selectmen to also make a motion to sign this letter with the proposed changes to Dale Lewis's name.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Move on to new business. Hook and ladder donation of a 2014 Polaris Ranger 6x6.
So I've given you a lot of information about this, and you've probably heard about this through the rumor mill by now. But the Hook and Ladder Company, which is the association that runs in parallel to our fire department, has received a donation to purchase this piece of equipment. And essentially what the Hook and Ladder Association now is going to donate it to the town. The selectmen would have to formally accept it. And what we've talked about with the fire chief is that we would bring it to the selectmen for formal acceptance tonight and then do some more pomp and circumstance in the future. Because right now this is being equipped and logoed and all those things. So it's not really ready for public viewing. But by the time it is ready for public viewing, we would like to train our firefighters on it. We'd like to recognize the donor and all of those things, but it would be nice if we had it insured and formally accepted by then. But most of this has already been accepted. It's stashed away in the fire department. It actually might be off-site being put together right now.
This thing, I mean, we looked at them several years ago. They are amazing. It allows you to go into a lot of your land trust trails. If you have a small brush fire or you get someone injured, that stuff pops off and the stove basket goes right on the back.
It's two different back bodies at once. It's nice.
Unless you've ever been on the receiving end of having to carry someone a mile through the woods, you don't realize how nice that will be.
No. When I was reading down through all the information that we were given, what kind of a warranty does this thing have?
Kind of.
Probably it's just mechanical.
Well, what I was thinking was 1 year, so I was a little surprised when
4 or 5.
the extended service agreement for 4 years was passed up and the priority maintenance plan was passed up. Because that would have given the town a little more protection.
TVs are 6 months.
Yeah, and I
If
mean,
you don't
this,
buy extra or if they don't give it to you. Sometimes they have plans where they, buy
Right, they give it to you.
Yeah, there was a couple of different plans and they were declined.
But they're all usually 6 months.
that is one of those instances where if this was the town purchasing, we would make more of those executive decisions at this level. But where you're talking about a donation, we weren't really in charge of those decisions at the time.
I think it's great. And then whenever you get basically a $47,000 total equipped machine, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and what we'd like to do, I'm not sure if it's possible yet, is have it on display, have photo ops of the donor, the Hook and Ladder Association, the fire department, the selectmen. If we could pull it off for town meeting, that would be cool. But
I don't know the total. I don't think the total price is here, but
I think we were talking when it adds up, it's about $50,000.
Because I mean, by the time they buy a trailer to tow it in, it's going to be an enclosed trailer and everything. I mean, that's just awesome.
Yeah.
Be able to pull that out when you need it. It's going to be one time this earned its keep.
Yeah. And if we could delay, if you could make a motion to accept it and delay it a week so the town manager could drive it before it's accepted, that would be kind of cool.
I know, I mean, I'm thinking years back now, I know the fire department had tried chasing grants a couple of times to get one of these things and got denied. I mean, it's been something that's been on their mind and as well as the ambulance service's mind. It's nothing we'd want to do to keep, you know what I mean? We'd want the fire department, but it's been on our mind for years, and to have someone come forward and donate this is that's a blessing.
No, I think it's going to be a great piece of equipment.
Yes, absolutely.
We don't want to really get in front of the Hook and Ladder Association, recognize the donor tonight or anything like that. But we do want to give proper recognition in the future.
I couldn't think of a better bunch of guys to give it to, because I mean, we've got one heck of a fire department. So.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Motion been made, second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Utility pole permit.
This I slid one in while I was changing the agenda real quick. We've received a request from Fairpoint for a utility pole. I'm not sure I've even given you copies of it. I'll give it to you here in a second. The utility pole request is 75 feet north of the intersection of Dover Cross and Back River Road. Sent Mike out earlier to take a look at it. They stake it out, and Mike had approved this, and we'd recommended it to the board for approval about a year ago, and apparently nothing ever happened to this, so now they have to request it again. So we've actually already gone through this motion once upon a time. So it's a little bit of a no-brainer, but it needs selectmen's authorization.
It is, but how many poles are we still looking for them to remove?
At this particular location?
Anywhere in town.
Old ones.
Because it seems like every time we turn around, we give them permission for new poles, and then old poles just stay there.
Stay there, right.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any poles in that particular location that we need taken down, but usually we're also, usually these requests are for a service to a private residence or something like that, and usually they're waiting on us to do this before they can place the pole.
It would be, I think, I agree with Chuck, I think it deserves, I mean, not to hold this up by no means, but I think it deserves a discussion with them, because too many times, whether it be them or CMP, they put a pole up and they leave the old one half there, or drop it and leave it.
Yeah.
That's not right.
No.
Someone else, we pay, every resident pays for that service, and we pay dearly for power and stuff to be on them poles. The last thing we need is an old trashy pole either standing or laying on our property.
Well, there was one up on 27 for years, or for at least about 6 months. It was kind of like mended together.
Yeah.
There was one down in front of the high school that was done the same way for a long time.
Yeah, that's still mended together.
Is that one still mended together? I haven't
Maybe we
noticed.
ought to start sending them a storage fee.
Right.
Well, I can tell you
Useless
that
items.
in the past, not in Boothbay, but in the past, there have been towns that just cut down the pole, because essentially if they've abandoned the pole, what are they gonna do?
The problem is then you run into a safety thing. If it's standing up next to power lines, I don't know if I want to be cutting it.
Oh, I'm talking about instances where they've moved the lines. And
Right.
There's a pole sitting there that's abandoned. So I've seen lots of towns do that. They just cut it out. I mean, they've abandoned the pole. They don't care about it. So.
Which I'd have no problem with that, but I do have a problem with these ones that are parallel poles. You
Yeah,
have
right.
one active, everything's been switched over, but the old dead one is still there, just an eyesore beside it.
A good test would be they just put all the new ones up on the country club road to switch over the taller poles. And when they switch them, how long do you suppose them poles would be there?
Don't know.
I say that we give them permission to put this one in with the condition that they come in, have a little chat with us about removing any old poles that are around town.
It'd be interesting to know the policy.
Yeah.
I mean, even
Well, I did get a little side note, just in my switching hats here a little bit, when they put the higher poles on 96, CMP, I believe, I'm hoping I'm getting my entities correct, they're paying to put the higher poles in. Fairpoint doesn't have the money to switch over, so the other poles that are going up over the ledge are gonna stay existing, and CMP is gonna move over to the higher poles, so now we're gonna have these nice new high poles running through the ledges over there on Route 96, and the shorter poles rolling up over top of the ledges, because Fairpoint's gonna stay on the old, and CMP's coming to the new.
So how come we didn't see a pole permit for the ones on the country club?
Yeah, this is.
That's a state road.
Yeah, but it's still in the town.
It's a state right away.
Okay.
Yeah. This is they're asking for permission to put a piece of property in the utility easement for your road.
Okay, I thought it was in town in general.
No,
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
so move.
Do we wanna do it with a stipulation to have them come in and talk to us? Or at
What do you guys
least,
think?
maybe not a stipulation, but should we try to have Jim contact?
I would say with this one, ask Jim to ask them to come in.
Right.
If not, then future ones may have conditions.
Right.
So in that
Let's made a
case,
motion, we have a second.
seconded.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Marvelous. Does this need to be signed
Yes.
by all of us?
I'd have to look at the form. I can't remember.
Yep. I'll go this way first, and then you guys can make it the way you do. Next up is public comment. No public comment? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to sign the warrants upon review.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor? Now I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session, 1 MRSA 4056A, to complete the town manager performance evaluation.
Return to the executive session.
Right.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?